Let me remind you a little bit about what we've covered, especially last week. So there's a major turning point in the book of Mark, and that begins with the triumphal entry. And that's what we see. We see Jesus, he rides into Jerusalem, everybody's cheering Hosanna, and yet he gets to the temple and he comes out. No one's there. No one's there. And to illustrate the spiritual nature that everybody is dealing with, the spirituality of the people, there's this fig tree. Jesus goes to it. That wasn't even the season for figs, but he saw it and it had leaves like it should have fruit. And he goes to it. And he looks at it and there's no fruit. And he curses the fig tree, which is his only destructive miracle. Because they come back the next day and Peter goes, whoa, what happened to the fig tree? And he's saying, look, it looked like it had fruit, had every signs that it had fruit, but there was no fruit to be found. And you see this paralleled where Jesus goes to the temple, where people should be worshiping God, where people should be doing everything they can to surrender to the Lord and really focus on Him and give Him their everything. And what does he see? He sees a bunch of moneylenders. He sees a bunch of people doing all of these trades. He sees lots of commerce happening instead of actual praise and worship. And even when Jesus does these things, he's challenged. They're going, on what authority do you have to say any of the things that you're saying or doing, or do any of the things that you're doing? And he tells them, look, John the Baptist, where did his baptism come from? Was it from God or was it from man? And they refused to answer. And he goes, if you refuse to answer, then I'm not going to answer you. Because the truth is, it came from God. And what John the Baptist had to say about Jesus is that he is the Messiah. That what he's coming to do is far greater than what even people are looking for him to do. And so with this in mind, this understanding of Jesus is here to come and save. Jesus is here to do what actually needs to be done in these people's lives. Jesus is coming here to fulfill their greatest need. Yet he's met with this ideology that says we're good. We don't need anything. In fact, if we need something, it's that we want health and we want wealth and we want prosperity. We want the Messiah to come and make our life easier. We're good enough. We don't need a Messiah that comes and dies for our sin. We need a Messiah that comes and kills the enemies. So this is where we start in Mark chapter 12, where Jesus is going to start answering all of these questions. And these two ideologies battle against one another. Look at what it says in Mark chapter 12. It says, he began to speak to them in parables. A man planted a vineyard, put a fence around it, dug it out for a pit, for a wine press, and built a watchtower. So in other words, he built the vineyard and he built the wine press because he expects fruit to come from this vineyard. I mean, he's put everything into it. And he even builds a watchtower so he could see who's coming. Then he leased it to a tenant farmers and went away. And at harvest time, he sent a servant to the farmers to collect some of the fruit of the vineyard from them, which makes total sense. It's his vineyard. Here's these farmers. They're just supposed to kind of farm it and kind of keep it up, but it's this guy's vineyard. And so when he goes and wants to collect some fruit, like that's part of the deal. So he sends this servant to collect this fruit from the vineyard. Verse 3, but they took him and they beat him and they sent him away empty-handed. And again, he sends another servant to them. And they hit him on the head and treated him shamefully. And he sent another and they killed that one. And he also sent many others. Some they beat and others they killed. So when he comes to collect the fruit, that's rightfully his. He could take all the fruit, really. But when he comes to collect from these people that are supposed to be tending the vineyard, every single servant he sends them, they kill and they beat up. Verse 6, he still had one to send, a beloved son. Finally, he sent to them saying, they will respect my son. They're not so dumb that they would kill him, right? But those tenant farmers said to one another, this is the heir. Come, let's kill him, and the inheritance will be ours. Now, explain that one to me. I'm going to send my beloved son. I only have one. I'm going to send him to you. And surely, if you respect me at all, you'll give me what's rightfully mine. I'm still letting you farm here. I'm still letting you do all this stuff. I've sent servant after servant after servant. Now I'm sending the one that I love as a representative of me. Surely you'll respect him. And their first thought is, if we kill him, then the vineyard will be ours. How foolish is that? But that's exactly what they did. So they seized him and killed him and threw him out of the vineyard. What then will the owner of the vineyard do? Well, he will come and he will kill the farmers and he will give the vineyard to others. Haven't you read this scripture? This is how he's going to connect it all. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. This came about from the Lord and is wonderful in our eyes. They were looking for a way to arrest him, but they feared the crowd because they knew he had spoken this parable against them. So they left him and they went away. This whole parable is pretty on the nose, right? The people who are tending the vineyard are clearly the Israelites. And God sends them prophet after prophet after prophet after prophet after prophet. And what do? They beat them up. They kill them. They don't listen to them. Why? Because they don't like what they have to say. They want to keep all the fruit for themselves. See, if they listen to the servants that come, they would have to give up a little. Not much, but they would have to give up a little. And they're like, we don't like that. So they'll beat them up and they'll kill them and they'll throw them out. And even when the guy said, I'm going to send my son, their whole idea was if we kill him, then we get it all. Then we get everything. And that's exactly what they do. This sounds foolish because it is foolish. Yet, it is how we often live our lives. God comes and he tells us what to do and we pick and choose. God gives us blessings, many, many blessings. Yeah, we hold them so tightly that God can't take them from us. To the point that our blessings become our idols. And that if we lose them, we feel like we've lost our whole life. This is how someone can reject Jesus. They could hear him. They could see that Jesus has big things for them. Salvation waiting for them. That sounds great. But they understand that salvation comes with a cost. That if you accept God into your life, you accept Jesus Christ, you become a Christian, you will have to sacrifice some of the fruit. Now, was it your fruit to begin with? Absolutely not. Every blessing, you haven't earned it. You don't deserve it. Now, you might feel like you have, but you don't. But when we say, Jesus, I surrender all to you. When we say things like to follow Jesus means to deny ourselves and take up the cross to follow him. When we say things like the first will be last and last will be first, like there's things that we have to surrender with that. Big things. Things that we don't want to. And there's a lot of time in our lives where we would go, I would rather just drive out those thoughts. I'd rather not listen to the people who are speaking the truth. And I'd rather do what I want to do. I can think back to the times in my life where I knew that I was doing wrong. Where I knew that I was doing what I wanted to do. And what I found was I used to have all of my radio stations on like Christian radio or like sermons or like whatever. And I changed all of them. I didn't want to listen to K-Love. I didn't want to listen to any of the radio stations. I didn't want to listen to Alistair Begg. I didn't want to listen to David Jeremiah. I didn't want to listen to any of it. Because I wanted to keep all of my blessings. I wanted to say what I wanted to do with the vineyard. I wanted to take control over something that was never mine, and that's my life. I wanted to make all the calls. I wanted to feel entitled. I wanted to feel self-righteous. I wanted to feel like I'm in control over everything. And whenever I would listen to the good news of Jesus, I'm reminded that the truth is that this is someone else's vineyard. This is someone else's blessings. This is someone else's fruit. When you accept Jesus, you have to understand that you are accepting, one, a great deal of humility because you realize that you can't save yourself. But two, you are accepting a life of surrender. That's your family, that's your finances, that's your job, everything. It's all on the table. Remember who this book is written to. This is written to people who have sacrificed everything and are looking back and going, did we do right? Should we continue sacrificing? Jesus is saying here, yes. You don't want to be like the tenants who killed the son. You want to be part of this other group that actually get the vineyard as an inheritance. What does this look like? How does he compare this to something that we could like really hold on to? Well, he quotes Psalm 118. Psalm 118 is part of these Hallel psalms that during Passover, when they would come to Jerusalem, they would sing these psalms. That's Psalm like 113 and 118. And they would sing these songs all the time. And so he's quoting as he's in Jerusalem, as he's with all these other pilgrims, as he's during this festival, he's saying, hey, you've been singing this song. Remember what this song says. It says, the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Now, did he write that? No, that's written back in the book of Psalms. But that actually came from somewhere. There's this old proverb. It's not in the Bible, but it's this proverb of where this comes from. And the idea was when Solomon was building his temple, the king didn't want them to do all the stonework in the middle of the city because it's really loud and it's really dusty and it's a real problem. And so he says, all right, I want you to do all this stuff outside the city, and then we'll ship everything in, and then you build it. Makes total sense. Well, they had this one stone come in, and it was awkward. It was this very strange stone, and they go, they must have messed that one up, and they threw it. They just threw it away. And then they build the temple, and they realize they're one stone short. And so they go back, and they say, hey, we're missing the most important piece. And they said, we sent that to you. Don't you remember? And they're like, oh man. So they had to go and they have to dig through all of this stuff. And they had to dig through all of this brush until they found the stone. That's the stone that they're talking about here. And people would know this story around this time. So the stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. The very thing that we want to push back against because it doesn't fit in your idea or my idea of what life should be about. The thing that we push back against because it messes with my control. It messes with my life. It messes with the things that I want to hold on tightly to. When those things are in jeopardy, we reject it. And yet, that's the very cornerstone. In other words, you have one of two choices. You could deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow Jesus, whatever that looks like, or not. You have that choice. You have that choice in a million different ways throughout the day. You have the choice of whether you want to be first, and if that means that you're last, so be it, or whether you want to be a servant to all and be last, knowing that you'll be first. You have this decision to either accept Jesus as the very cornerstone of your life, and you say, whatever comes with that, I'll take it, or that you reject it. You cannot play this game where you say, I get to have Jesus, and I have a little bit of Jesus over here, and I sprinkle a little bit of Jesus over here, but the rest of my life is really about me and what I want. That's not how this works, and it's never been how this works. Otherwise, you'll build your whole life and miss the cornerstone, and it'll fall apart. You'll build your house on the sand and wonder why your house is crumbling all around you. It's black and white. There's no real gray area when it comes to choosing Jesus. Either he is the very cornerstone of your life, or he's not. And even though, pay attention to this, even though the stone was awkward, even though the stone was rejected by the builders, look what it says about it. This came from the Lord, and it is wonderful in our eyes. So even though the Christian life might not fit the American dream, though the Christian life may change your path from what maybe you grew up thinking your life should look like, that it changes your career, it changes where you live, it changes who your friends are, it changes everything about your life, even though it looks completely different than maybe what everybody else is telling you should do, it's the life that you should accept, because it's the only life where there's real satisfaction. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. So, I grew up in Mississippi. I grew up in the Delta. I can remember stories of people where people would be planning on going to medical school or becoming lawyers or, all of these lofty goals. And then the Lord speaks to their life. And all of a sudden, they're like, after medical school, I'm going to go do medical missions for the rest of my life. Or I'm not doing that, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go do mission work. And I remember people in my life who I love and who I respect see that. People giving their whole life to Jesus, willing to go international. And then we go, oh, what a shame. I would have been such a good doctor around here. Oh, their poor parents. They're moving halfway around the world. They're taking the grandkids with them. Isn't that terrible? Oh, they could have had such a beautiful life. I've heard this, not from people outside the church, people inside the church, people in leadership positions, people who I respect. Yeah, the life doesn't look exactly like what the world tells you that it should. That doesn't mean that it's not beautiful. Yeah, that means that you might have to sacrifice more than what you're comfortable with. And yet, if it's for Jesus, it's really wonderful. This is counting the cost. Do you want to live life for yourself and how everybody else says that you should live it and make the most money and have the most influence and gain the most respect? Or do you want to follow Jesus, whatever that looks like? You have to decide. What is life really about? Now, Jesus is about to answer that very question. Look at what it says in verse 13. It says, and they sent some of the Pharisees and the Herodians to Jesus to trap him in his words. And when they came, they said to him, Teacher, we know that you are truthful and don't care what anyone thinks, nor do you show partiality, but teach the way of God truthfully. Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not? Should we pay or shouldn't we? Now, the Pharisees hated paying taxes. They hated it. They hated that the Romans were over them. They thought that it was such a bother. They felt that they were funding their oppressors. They feel like their money should be to build up Israel. That their money should be used for God and used for good. Now the Herodians, they had a totally different perspective. They liked Rome. They didn't mind paying taxes to them because with that came some protection and came some political power, and it was good for them. And so you have these two groups, right? Should we pay taxes or should we not? Now here's the trap. If he says, yes, pay taxes because we need to support Rome, well, the crowds will hate him. But if he says, no, don't pay taxes, well, he'll get arrested because he's being insubordinate. But look what he says. Look at this. But knowing their hypocrisy, he said to them, why are you testing me? Bring me a denarius to look at. And they brought him a coin. It says, whose image and inscription is this? And they said, Caesar's. Jesus told them, give to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. What is Jesus trying to say here? Let me give you some broad things, and then let me get more specific, and then talk about our application. One of the broad things is we have to understand that our leaders, God appointed, whether we like it or not. Now you go, oh, in America we get the vote. Okay. You don't think that God can move the hearts and minds of people to put exactly who he wants in power, when he wants them in power? I think he can. He's only done it throughout history, over and over again. Just because we live in a democracy, or technically a republic, doesn't make it any different. God is still in complete control. But what this means is that all of our leaders have been appointed by God. And we have to show them respect. Not because they've really earned it or deserve it, no matter what political side you sit on, but it's because God placed them there. And if you respect God's choices, then you have to respect what he's done. Now let me get a little bit more specific. He points to whose face and signature, whose image and inscription is on this. And they say it's Caesar's. He said, give to Caesar's what is Caesar's. Just give it to him. Now, why can they do that? Right? Because I hate paying taxes. I don't know about you. It's not like, it doesn't like make me happy. It's not something fun that I look forward to. I'm not paying extra taxes just to see what happens. But I can do it because the money that I give doesn't even matter. What Jesus is trying to say is you're saying that you're not going to pay taxes. Pharisees, if you're all against the taxes, you're like, well, this money could be used for God, for example. You think God needs your money? You think God needs your resources? You think that God needs the things that you bring to the table? No. And so when it comes to Caesar, when it comes to your own taxes, when it comes to all the stuff that we have to deal with day in, day out, just all the government headaches that you might have to go through and all the bureaucratic red tape you have to go through to get stuff done, just do it. New Testament says count it all joy. It doesn't matter. It's not that big of a deal. You know, I think when I come face to face with God, I think money is going to matter a lot less than what I thought it did. You know, when Jesus returns and brings the new heaven and the new earth, I don't think the dollar is going to hold up very well. You know what I mean? Like, we spend so much time worrying about all of this stuff that we want to say is ours. And Jesus is calling it hypocrisy. Because it's not that you don't pay taxes and then you're following God, or you do pay taxes and God and the government, and you have to support both to like a crazy degree. No, it's understand when there are things that don't matter, just do it. But here's the important thing. That you give to Caesar the things that are Caesar's. Okay, we'll do that. But you give to God the things that are God. That are God's. In the same way that coin has Caesar's inscription and image on it, you yourself were created in the very image of God. The imago Dei. You have it. And so if I could give this coin to Caesar because it's got his face and name on it, then logically I have to understand that my life is not my own. Because God's inscription and God's image is here on my life. To begin with, whether you want to accept that or not, God's image and His inscription is already on your life. That's how you were created. And so when it starts to talk about give to God the things that are God's, it's your whole life. You were literally created to be for God, to glorify God, to be amazed at His majesty, to worship Him with your life. And the fact that we spend so much of our time doing anything else and everything else, well, that's the very definition of sin. We have to learn that surrender is not this big thing. Honestly, all of the things that Jesus is telling us to surrender matter very, very little when we come face to face with who God really is, what God has called us to, and what God has saved us to. So this thing happens or that thing happens, and I don't have my retirement. This thing happens and that thing happens, and now I have terrible cancer. This thing happens and that thing happens, and we have to move away. It's okay. Because the one thing that matters is that you are living for God. Pride is the reason why you have to deny yourself. Pride is the reason why you have to take up the cross. Pride is the reason why you say, I'm first, and you push everybody down, and you push everybody out of your life. Giving to God the things that are God's is giving God all that you are and all that you will be. And that's not unnatural. It's what you've been created for. Now listen to this. Verse 18. The Sadducees would say there is no resurrection. In fact, some people would say that the Sadducees don't even believe in an afterlife. Unfortunately, I can't verify a lot of that. There's not a lot left of the Sadducees, but there are people that say, hey, there's definitely no resurrection. And there's a lot of people that say that They don't even believe in an afterlife. Okay, keep that in mind. They came to him and they questioned him. Teacher, Moses wrote to us that if a man's brother dies, leaving a wife behind but no child, that man should take the wife and raise up offspring for his brother. And there were 7 brothers, and the first married a woman, dying, left no offspring. The second also took her, and he died, leaving no offspring. And the third likewise, and none of the 7 left offspring. Last of all, the woman died too. In the resurrection, when they rise, whose wife will she be, since the 7 had married her? Who cares about this question? He's literally, or the Sadducees are just throwing junk out there to see what sticks. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And the Pharisees have some kind of retort to it, and the Sadducees will try and push back against it and be like, how foolish is that? They're equal. It's a meaningless argument, is what it really is. And so Jesus spoke to him. Isn't this the reason why you're mistaken? You don't know the scriptures or the power of God. In other words, you don't even understand who God is to even begin to have this meaningless conversation. These are people that don't believe in the resurrection. They don't believe in anything supernatural. They don't believe in miracles or anything like that. And so he's saying the whole reason why you can even ask this question is you don't even believe what the scriptures are telling you. You don't even believe in God in the first place. You're just playing mind games and moving cups around and hoping that you pick it up in the balls under that one. It's just meaningless. Listen what he says. For when they rise from the dead, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels in heaven. Okay, let me make a sidebar here, because this is important to several of you who are in here and some of you who have friends who are like this. Is this saying when you go to heaven, you won't be married to your husband or your wife anymore? Yes. Okay. Now that's a real bummer for some of you. Because if you were in love with your significant other like I'm in love with Emily, like I just want to be married forever. Like I love it, and I love her, and like I can't imagine life without her. And some of you, I mean, are dealing with that, being without your significant other. And one of the things that really gets you excited is that one day you'll be reunited, and that is true. If they're a believer in Christ and you're a believer in Christ, you'll be reunited, but you won't be married. Well, what does that mean? What does that look like? How am I supposed to feel about that? That's the main question. How am I supposed to feel about that? When you get to heaven, God is going to be so much better than what you've ever even thought of, imagined, or realized. I had somebody tell me once, I was like, what's your favorite part about heaven? Like, what is the thing that you're looking forward to? And they said, I think when I get to heaven, I will be able to see what's happening back here on earth, but only the happy things. I said, why would you ever want to do that? Like, what? Who cares what's happening here? It's like, and she's like, wow, I'd love to see like my grandchildren do this or my great-grandchildren. Sure, but like you're face to face with God. Ultimate joy, ultimate peace, ultimate happiness, ultimate love. It's right in front of you. And you're going to worry about what so-and-so is doing on earth? That doesn't make any sense. In the same way, as wonderful as your marriage is or was, being in the presence of God is going to make all of our other happiness feel foolish, because it's going to be that wonderful, that big, that love. You thought that you loved your spouse. Wait till you're face to face with the love of God fully. No sin holding you back, no pride holding you back. You get to experience all of it. It doesn't compare. You want to see what your grandkids are doing? No, you won't. You won't care about any of that. And what Mark is trying to get us to just get a taste of is that we're so engulfed in this life. And we're like the Sadducees, saying this is the best there is. Better make the most of this. And we make all these excuses to be selfish again and again and again because we have this mindset of this is all there is. This is the best there is. When the truth is we're not living for now, we're living for eternity. And when you have that mindset, that this, and none of this matters, give to Caesar what's Caesar's. Yeah, you're worried about which one's going to be married to who. It doesn't matter. When you realize what really matters is that your life is meant to worship God fully and be in perfect relationship with Him and to obey what He says. So that means tell others about Jesus as well. It just makes everything else seem very, very small. Isn't this the reason why you're mistaken? You don't know the scriptures, and you don't know the power of God. God could resurrect anyone at any time for any reason at any point. He created everything. Why do you think that He cannot come into the fabric of His creation and change the rules at any point? It wouldn't even be hard for Him. It's not hard. For when they rise from the dead, they neither marry or are given in marriage, but are like angels in heaven. As for the dead being raised, haven't you read the book of Moses in the passage about the burning bush? How God says, I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. He is not the God of the dead, but of the living. You see what He's saying there? Did He say, I was the God of Abraham, I was the God of Jacob, I was the God of Isaac? No, He says, I am. I still am. Because God's not the God of the dead. We think of heaven as this place that once we're good and we're dead, it's like, all right, it's over. It's a resting place. God gives us life. And we get to experience some of the spiritual life now. Moving forward, that's what life is. That's what we set our mind on. That's what we set our hope to. That we don't actually have to taste death. We don't have to perish. We get everlasting, eternal life. That's what we set our mind on. That's what we look forward to. And when we place our hope and our love and our trust in those things, then we can live sacrificially. Then we can deny ourselves. Then the rest of the world just starts to make sense. What's foolish and what's not. What's going to matter and what doesn't. Now when you start to live like that, man, you just start to live a life that's so much more satisfying here and forever. Verse 28, one of the scribes approached, and when he heard them debating, he saw that Jesus answered them well, and he asked him, well, which commandment is the most important of all? And Jesus answered, the most important is, listen, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. That's everything. That's everything. Well, how can I do that? It's because I was created to give Him everything. I was created to love Him with all of that in my life. I was created for that. That's not unnatural. It's unnatural that we're so self-absorbed. He said, the second is this, love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. And when the scribe said to him, you're right, teacher, you have correctly said that He is one, and there's no one else except Him, to love with all your heart, with all your understanding, with all your strength, to love your neighbor as yourself is far more important than all the burnt offerings and the sacrifices. And when Jesus saw this, He answered wisely, He said, you are not far from the kingdom of God. This is what Jesus wants you to know. He wants your heart. He doesn't care about your church attendance. He doesn't care about how much you've tithed. He's not impressed by that. He's not impressed by how many committees you are on. He's not impressed by anything that you have done. The greatest commandment is to love the Lord with everything that you are. What happens when I do love the Lord with everything that I am? Then comes everything else. Specifically, you will love your neighbor as yourself. Without first loving the Lord with everything that you are, it is impossible to truly love your neighbor as yourself. I feel like a lot of us, we don't like that. We really want to think that we're loving people, that we're really good people. And we think what we really have to work on is our relationship with God. So like, I don't do my devotional every day, or I don't pray like I should, or I still do what I want when I want. I'm still spending my money how I feel like, and I just got to get a little bit more right with God. But loving people, I love everybody. It's not true. You might be nice to other people. You might be pleasant. You might give a little to other people, but you don't love others like you love yourself. I've thought a lot about this. What would I want others to do for me? When I'm going through a hard time, right, really sick, or I've lost someone that I love, or maybe I'm just down. I just woke up with a dull headache and days just kind of gotten worse. Feeling a little bit of depression. If it was up to me, I'd just go to the store, get a pint of ice cream, curl up, and just kind of cry, What would I want? You guys don't like me curling up and eating ice cream. It's what I do. That's why I look like I do, But this is what I'm trying to get at. What would I want someone to do for me in that situation? And whatever my answer is what I'm expected to do for everyone around me. Let me give a real practical example. I know in my life how much Jesus means to me. I know how he has changed me. I know all the blessings that I've been able to receive, like truly receive it, instead of just abusing it. Jesus has done so much in my life where I actually get to enjoy a good and wonderful life. Why would I then not tell everyone I know about the thing that has given me the greatest joy in my life? Penn from Penn and Teller, he was interviewed about this, and he doesn't even believe in Jesus. But they were like, what do you think of Christians? And he goes, I think it's crazy. They say that they have the keys to all of life, to heaven. They know what gets them to heaven, and yet they don't tell anybody. He said, that would be like if I see a truck coming, and it's about to hit somebody, and I just don't say anything. Not that I'm asked to jump in front of it and take the whole truck myself. I don't even go, hey, watch out. I just watch and I let it happen. If I am supposed to love others like I love me, well then that's the least I could do, is to try and get them to be around the greatest thing that I've ever experienced. But then there's so many other ways that we could apply that, right? When someone's having a hard day, I know that I like it when someone at least gives me a text, hey, thinking about you, praying for you. That means a lot to me. Well, I could do that. When someone's sick, it'd be nice. Not that if somebody asked, hey, you need anything, but they just showed up with I'm sick with a cold. They just showed up with some cold medicine, you know. I didn't have to go to the store. Even if I already have it. Like, I know people have done that for me. And I remember, gosh, wow, I feel so loved. I feel so seen. What would you want people to do for you? You have to do the same for others. And that only can be achieved when you have come face to face with loving the Lord with everything that you have. Otherwise, when it comes to loving others, you will always hold back, and you'll hold back a lot. When it comes to loving others, you'll be entitled. Well, when you needed to borrow money, you never paid it back. Why would I give you more? Or when you walk around town, that guy still owes me money. I don't even want to deal with them. I can't even stand seeing them. Whatever it is. Loving the Lord is the beginning of being able to love others. And when we start to understand that fully, loving the Lord with everything you have, sacrificially, and that allows us to then love others sacrificially, then we're not far from the kingdom of God. Let me talk about one more thing. While Jesus is teaching in the temple, he asked, how can the scribes say that the Messiah is the son of David? Okay, what is this talking about? Around the time of the first century, they started saying that the Messiah is the son of David. Now, this means a descendant of David, but this gets all, language is very powerful. And so when you start saying things in a certain way, it gets in people's minds that it's this certain thing. And so basically, they're saying that the Messiah is going to be another David. That's their thought. That's what this really means, that the Messiah is a son of David. Okay, let's keep that in our minds. So David himself says, by the Holy Spirit, the Lord declared to my Lord, Yahweh declared to Adonai, sit at my right hand until I put your enemies under your feet. And David himself calls him Lord. How can he be his son? What is this talking about? During this time, everybody is wanting probably what you want from God too, which is health, wealth, and prosperity. When I go to God and I say, will you bless me? That I just get whatever I want. And I could do whatever I want with it. Right? God, I have a cold. Make me better. Thanks. Okay, now I'm just going to keep doing what I was wanting to do. Right? God, I would like to have this new boat. I would like to have this new house. Would you give me money? Oh, thanks. You gave me money. All right, well, good. God bless my plans. Oh, the plans worked out. Great. That's what people want. That's what they want from the Messiah. Someone who's going to come, they're going to take care of all of the surrounding enemies, bring down the Roman Empire, and Israel's going to be number one, and everything in their life is going to be great. Lots of prosperity. But what Jesus is saying is the Messiah, though he is a descendant of David, is nothing like David. David is saying, the Lord, Yahweh, declared to Adonai, my superior, the one who is going to be far greater than me. And so when David calls himself Lord, it's not that he's his son, he's not a subordinate. Jesus is much greater. Which means that what Jesus is going to do with his death, burial, and resurrection from the grave is far greater than if Jesus would have come, defeated all the enemies, and just made their life easy. Do you think about your salvation in that way? That your salvation is greater than any sickness, than any opposition, than any loss? That your salvation is greater than any pain you can experience in this world, oppression you could feel, sadness. Jesus' salvation supersedes all of it. Because if the greatest thing was just, hey, make our life easy, Jesus would have just come just like David. And he would have defeated everybody and it would have been fine. That's not our greatest need. And even if Jesus gives you everything you want, you won't really be satisfied. What Jesus gives you, when you're born again, when you taste new life, when you're made into a new creation, when you get to experience salvation and all that comes with it, that's when you're satisfied in your life. Because you weren't created for all this other stuff. You were created to be in relationship with God. And the only thing that will fix the things in your life is that. What Jesus is doing is he's trying to change our perspective to help understand what is really important in this life. So my prayer is that this week you just take some time to think about it. What's really important in my life?